Oh, it's right here. We ready? Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's public meeting. This is the hybrid for the Cheltenham driveway. This is going to be a hybrid meeting, and it is recorded. It is today, March 27th, 2025, 6:30 p.m. And let's get started. All right, before we begin, these are the process that we're going to go through with this meeting. To start out, we're going to go over basic Zoom formats and meeting control for those who are online. And we'll go over some background information about the projects. I'll go over some of the existing condition that's out there. And at that point, I'll hand it over to our engineering consultant to talk about the proposed design. And then we'll dive into the project status, the funding, and the overall schedule. And finally, we'll wrap it up with a Q&A session where we'll try our best to address all of your concerns. All right, so the control for Zoom, there's some basic just Zoom format to kick us off. Again, please note that this meeting is recorded. The video will be posted on the project website following the meeting. If you do not want your voice or likeness recorded, please keep your camera off and refrain from asking questions using the audio option. Instead, you can use the chat text box to ask questions. Just a note, everyone is on mute. You cannot unmute yourself. We'll unmute you during the Q&A session. To request to speak, please use the raise hand feature. Once we unmute you, you can unmute yourself using the pop-up menu. We'll go over that here in a little bit. If you're calling in by phone, you can unmute yourself by dialing *6. Again, your camera is turned off by default, just so we have enough bandwidth for this meeting. All right, so if you have questions, please send it via the chat if you're online. Here's how you do it. There's a chat icon at the bottom of the Zoom. You can send the chat to a specific person, but I recommend sending it to everyone or to our facilitator, Miss Lori Main. To use the raise hand feature, there is a little react icon at the bottom. And once you hit that, hit the yellow raise hand button. If you're calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by dialing in *9. Okay, as for the videos, this is more of a Zoom feature. If you want to change how Zoom look on your screen and you only want to see people who have their cameras on, click the start video, select video setting, and checkbox says hide non-video participant. Okay, so let's dive into the meeting. I'll introduce myself. My name is Huang Nguyen. I am the project manager for the Cheltenham Drive Bikeway project. Working under the direction of Ms. Rebecca Park, our transportation engineering unit manager, along with our engineering consultant from Stantec, Ms. Lori Adgett, the project manager, and Ms. Kuta Oma, project engineer. This slide right here gives you an overview of the project location. As you can see, it's within the Bethesda Central Business District. It's going along Norfolk Avenue and then also spanning along the length of Cheltenham Drive, only to Tilbury Street. This is just a short bikeway segment. A little background information of the project. This project is part of the Bethesda Montgomery County Bicycle Master Plan Network, and it is part of the Bethesda Bikeway Network. As you can see in the little blue line right there, I know it's a little bit hard to see. Our project starts from Norfolk Avenue, from Woodmont to Wisconsin, where the bike lane is going to span, and then following that, it will be along Cheltenham Drive, going from Wisconsin Ave to Tilbury Street, that roundabout right there. As part of a larger bicycle network, it's going to tie directly into the Woodmont Phase 2 North. That project is in the final design phase right now and is slated construction in about FY26. Following that, we're going to have the Woodmont Avenue Phase 3 and Norfolk Avenue Share Street cycle track. Both of those projects are currently not funded for design or construction yet. As far as our project, we are funded for design and construction as of the present. So the existing condition out there along both Norfolk Ave and Cheltenham Drive, looking at the Norfolk Ave, looking east along at Woodmont Ave, you can see that it has 16-foot travel lane in both directions, and this is shared between both motorists and cyclists. And you also have parkings on both sides of the street and sidewalks on both sides. Looking at Cheltenham Drive, you have 12-foot travel lane in both directions, but traveling westbound, you have a 12-foot turn lane. The width varies, but generally it's a 12-foot turn lane. And then you have 12-foot parking going on the south side of the road going eastbound. As you can see that as a cyclist, it's not very comfortable to use Norfolk Avenue right now with the shared use path, or not with the shared road use. And as for Cheltenham Drive, there is no dedicated bicycle facility at the moment. So as of right now, I'll hand it over to Lori to talk about the proposed design of the project.
Thank you, Huang. So I guess I just push this one. Okay. So in general, for the proposed design, we'll be utilizing existing roadway space to provide the separated bike lanes. Currently, we are not proposing any impacts to existing right-of-way. On this slide and the next one, the dark blue lines represent the existing right-of-way and property lines. So this slide here shows the Norfolk Avenue segment between Woodmont Avenue and Maryland 355. Through this section, we will be narrowing the lanes and removing the existing parking along the north side to accommodate the new bike lanes and concrete buffers on either side of the road. Meter parking will be maintained along the south side. We'll also have some new bicycle markings at Woodmont Avenue to help guide cyclists through and around the intersection. New bike lane markings will also be provided through the Maryland 355 intersection. So this next slide shows the Cheltenham Drive segment between Maryland 355 and Tilbury Street. Through this section, we'll be narrowing the lanes and removing the existing parking along both sides of the roadway to make room for the new bike lanes and concrete buffers. We will be maintaining the existing lane configuration, which is one lane in each direction and a westbound left turn lane. We'll also be providing a protected bike lane around the southwest corner of the roundabout to connect cyclists to the existing bike route located along Tilbury Street. Additional improvements within the project limits include sidewalk ramp reconstruction and upgrades for ADA compliance, new crosswalks and bike lane markings, and new bicycle signage. All right, here we have the proposed typical section for Norfolk Avenue. We're looking east at the roadway, so north is on the right. North is on the left side and south is on the right. As I mentioned before, the parking along the north side is removed to make room for the bike lanes and concrete buffers that will be added to either side. The bike lanes will be 5 feet wide, excluding the 1-foot gutter pan, and the concrete buffers will vary from 2.5 to 3.5 feet wide. We will maintain one travel lane in each direction, and an 8-foot parking lane will be provided along the south side. The typical section for Cheltenham Drive will look very similar. The parking along the north and south sides is removed to make room for the bike lanes and buffers that will be added to each side of the road. We will provide 5-foot bike lanes, excluding that 1-foot gutter pan, and 2-foot concrete buffers. We will maintain one travel lane in each direction, as well as that westbound left turn lane. And I'll hand it back to Wong.
Thanks. Thank you, Lori. So this slide here gives you an overview of our schedule. We completed our 30% design just recently in winter 2025, and then today is spring 2025. It's this public meeting right now. We're presenting our project to you. Later this spring, we're looking to go to mandatory referral to get planning's input. And from that, we're going to try to reach our 60% design in summer 2025. Various process and whatnot is going to take quite a while. We're going to try to get our design complete in spring 2026 and then begin construction by fall 2026 and hopefully get everything done by spring 2027. As far as the cost for the project, it is estimated right now the total cost to build the bike lane is going to be about $2.2 million with engineering design at 700,000. Not much land acquisition that we can foresee right now. Utility relocation, we're looking at about 200,000, and the construction is going to cost $1.3 million. And with that, we're going to wrap up the presentation. These are my contact information along with the project webpage. Please submit any of your comments, concerns by April 28th. That is not a hard deadline. You can still submit anything to me even after this date. And with that, we're going to move into the Q&A session. For virtual participant, cameras and microphone have been turned off to reduce bandwidth, but we'll unmute you as you raise your hand and ask questions. For those who are on the phone, press *9 to raise your hand and press *6 when you are asked to unmute. Type your question in the chat box. And most importantly, please provide your email address on all chat box submissions. If we run short on time answering your questions, I'll be able to get to them later. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you for this testing. 1, 2. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. We appreciate the county's outreach to our community. One question I have, are there any bike racks planned and to be included in this project?
So right now, we don't have bike racks planned, not on our design at least. As far as bike rack goes, I think those from the mass lane, what I saw is a lot of those are going to be planned at near metro stations where you're going to have people, parking their bikes and then taking the metro to go elsewhere.
Thank you. Has the county considered just having a protected bike lane just up and down the length of Wisconsin Avenue? Considering the fact that we're in a climate crisis and that we should be moving away from the use of gasoline vehicles and combustible engines and towards a sustainable future, wouldn't it be good to have a protected bike lane running up and down Wisconsin Avenue?
So Wisconsin Avenue is a state road, and the county, we don't have plans for bike lanes on Wisconsin Avenue that I know of as of right now. Like I said, again, it's a state road, and I agree with you that we should have all modes of transportation for all different modes. We should have transportation for all modes instead of just for cars and vehicles with the climate change and whatnot. And as part of the county's bicycle master plan, that is the aim. We're aiming for connectivity, throughout the county and providing transportation for everybody.
I would like to add that so we as Huang said, MD 355 is a state road, so you would have to contact the state for that idea. Now, what we do is we're trying to implement what's shown in the Montgomery County Bicycle Master Plan that was adopted in 2018, and also Bethesda Sector Plan. That was I think it was, I'm sorry? Not on this slide, but it's on the website.
Yes,
yeah, I mean, we
yes.
can put, tomorrow you're going to see the slides of this presentation on the website along with the bike network. All right. Lori, do you have any virtual attendee that has a question?
I do not.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Sorry, I have a couple of questions. Were there any studies done that showed these bike lanes are necessary and that there are a lot of incidents with bikers on these two blocks?
Well, there was a feasibility done for the bike lanes in 2022, I believe. Well, again, this part of the county's master plan for connectivity, and the bike lanes will not only provide modes of transportation, but is connecting existing bike lanes to any future bike lane that's going to be built.
I bike that all the time. It's never a problem. Secondly, how does it tie into the study that was done for bike lanes through the neighborhood? There's a whole questionnaire about running bike lanes through that neighborhood. The East Bethesda
Are you
on Cheltenham, going
okay?
down, continuing on Cheltenham.
Okay, so right here, as you can see, so this is, I mean, this infographic doesn't give you the whole picture, but again, once this meeting is concluded, we'll post on the project website a more expanded bike network, so you can see all the connectivity of the bike lanes. But as you can see here, this project shown in blue, as you can see, just the little blue part right there, is just a small part of a bigger bike network. There is a feasibility study that shows once completed, all of these are going to be connected, and all of these new bike lanes are going to connect to all the existing trails.
So usually the dash line is the future project. And I do remember seeing the future bike lane through the East Bethesda, but we don't have a timeline as to when that's going to be planned and the design and constructed. So and we try to with a given budget, based on given budget, we're trying to piecemeal and wherever we can afford to build and expand this bikeway network. Hopefully that answered the question.
Was there any study done on the impact of the traffic on Norfolk? It backs up already trying to get across Wisconsin, onto Wisconsin, heading east. Bike lanes are great, but people aren't going to stop driving. You can see that on Woodmont, the backup of traffic since the bike lanes went in and the lanes were reduced.
Yes, there was a traffic analysis that was done for this project. I don't remember the details off the top of my head, but I'll gladly review it and give you all the details you need. If you can, we can meet after the talk after the meeting, and give me your email address and whatnot, and we'll dive into the traffic analysis, and I can show you the traffic impact that was studied.
Any other questions?
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. Much appreciated. So the design of like the concrete separators between the bike lane and all of that, what is that? I don't think it'll protect the bikers that much. And it's sometimes almost like a driving hazard. Did you consider different designs? Number one. And then second, the ones on Woodmont get completely run over by semi trucks that come and deliver. So it's the coordination of the retail spaces that are there. Did you think of that, how that interacts? Because it is an urban space. So how are urban bike lanes being addressed? Did you think of it in that sense is my question? Because there's a lot of semis. You have CVS, that semi truck goes around that circle, taking down the trees. Just imagine what it can do to a cyclist. So I don't know if that's been thought of too, just how the context of these bike lanes in an urban setting. And then to your point, Rebecca, about this is a secondary question, just real quick. I hope you saw what that you connected to what the other projects are for the bike lanes. It's not an isolated incident. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I can answer. Okay. So as far as the concrete median for the bike lane, our plan is shown or concrete medians provide the most comfortable use of the bicycle lane as opposed to just a stripe on the road. And it's going to give more protection than just a stripe on the road. I mean, if trucks are running over concrete, they're going to run over the stripe on the road too. Uh, I mean, something taller could be. I really can't say. We have a budget that we have to stick to.
So, ma'am, you made a great point. We haven't explored that option of putting some barriers on the concrete buffer, but like in DC and other urban settings, these concrete separation is widely used. But you made a valid point. There's a CVS and there are other commercial buildings that have a delivery trucks that could possibly run over that concrete buffer. So we'll look into the option. I mean, we'll explore after this meeting. We'll explore an option of for pedestrian and a bike safety. So. Any other questions?
Will be the separator between the bikes and the road.
So as of right now, as the design show, we are let's show the typical section again. So as you can see right now, we're gonna have on one side you can see a 2.5 foot concrete median, and the other side is a 3.5 foot concrete median, and it rises a little bit above the road surface.
Why is it higher on one side than the other?
I mean, that could just be a graphical drawing on this picture. It's not to scale.
Yeah, I see. And how high does it rise?
6 inches. Okay. Okay. So it's gonna rise about 6 inches above the road surface.
Is this the first time this has been used in Montgomery County?
No, it's not.
Where else are these used?
Right. A lot of it has been used out there in downtown Silver Spring.
Was any consideration given to like a truly protected bike lane?
I mean, this is what we have considered right now. Our design is only at 60% at the moment, so we're heading towards 60%. My apologies. We're only at 35% right now, so we can consider other options. But it's been shown that a separated bike lane like this will provide enough comfortability for bicyclists.
It's not the comfortability I'm worried about. It's the protection of our lives because we're dying out here.
And your concern is valid, sir. I agree, and we'll explore other options.
Yeah, this, as we said, this is only preliminary design stage, 35%. Yeah, we will, and but as Lori pointed out, we already implemented this in the North Bethesda area, and we haven't had any incidents or accidents with this concrete barrier. This is a sturdier than flex post. Flex post can be, knocked down easily with the snow plowers. Those give false sense of security. This concrete barrier will do a better job. It meets the purpose. Good. For the other audiences joining in.
Has the county given any consideration to using those barriers where the current flex posts are? Because I agree with the other questioner over here that they're not very effective.
The existing flex posts.
Yeah, on Woodmont Avenue.
Is that used to separate bike lanes at the moment? When I went, okay. I mean,
I was talking about Old Georgetown Road, and they installed the stripe buffers out there. There might be some flex posts up and down the north and south section of Old Georgetown Road, but they're replacing those with the concrete buffers you see there. So they'll probably be doing it in other areas as well because they know the concrete buffers are safer than the markings or the flex posts.
Any other questions? Lori, have you received any questions through the chat?
Actually, Matt Johnson is on the call. And
Oh,
would
Matt
like
Johnson,
to
who is
speak.
the bikeway coordinator. Matt?
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. This is Matt Johnson. I'm the bikeways coordinator for DOT, and I have a cold, so that's why I didn't come in person tonight. I hope you'll forgive me. This for the people who are in the audience. Some of the questions that have been asked have been sort of more global than the project, like can we upgrade the flex post in other locations? That's kind of beyond the scope of this project. What I would say to that is the barriers that are being proposed as part of this project, which I know 6 inches doesn't sound like very much. 6 inches is the typical height the sidewalk is above the street. So this is the same kind of curb that you have at the edge of the sidewalk. And we do have this type of barrier elsewhere in Bethesda, along Woodmont Avenue and along Bethesda Avenue. The section of Woodmont that currently exists between Old Georgetown and Norfolk is going to be upgraded as part of phase 2. That's a separate project of the Woodmont Avenue Cycle Track project. That's going to happen hopefully toward the end of this year. Different project manager from this team that's here tonight. I believe someone asked about the Old Georgetown Road in the room. That is a state highway project, not a county project, so that's not in our wheelhouse. But we are upgrading to this where possible in other parts of the county, including, as was mentioned, in Silver Spring. And this is a very effective way at keeping vehicles out. It is not 100% effective, but it does a much better job than just white lines or flex posts. And it's also very resilient. It's easier to maintain. We lose a lot of flex posts every winter to snow plowing. We don't lose as much curb to snow plowing. So it's more resilient and it does last longer. And I just wanted to chime in, and if there are any other questions for me as the Bikeways coordinator or things that the team wants to refer to me, I'm here for that.
Any questions? Thank you, Matt. Yes, sir.
Can you go to the photographs there? Can you go and then go to Norfolk? So you've eliminated the parking on the north side. You've kept the parking on the south side. So what does that, how wide is that bike lane on the north side? Okay. So go to the other side of Wisconsin. So here you've eliminated the parking on both sides of Cheltenham. So what's the rationale for having on this block two separated bike lanes on either side as opposed to Norfolk? So Norfolk, you have a bike lane on one side of the road. Cheltenham, you have bike lane on both sides of the road.
There are bike lanes on both sides of the road here as well.
Okay. Can you go to the section for Norfolk?
Oh, the typical section. Okay. Here we go.
I see. Where, oh, now I see the parking.
So,
okay. So go back to the picture of Cheltenham. What's the green? What does that represent? The green segmented. Yeah, all those.
Those are the bike lane itself.
No, but how's the barrier shown? The green is the bike lane markings, and the white is the concrete buffer, now that I see that. Okay. So in that particular section, on both sides, on the north side and on the south side, you have
three curb cuts, three driveway aprons, whatever you want to say. So it's not a continuous barrier for the entire block. It's it to me, it seems like there's a false sense of security for a biker there because they think they're on a segregated, separated, structured bike lane, but yet on both sides of the street, you have curb cuts where you have traffic. You're basically creating 6 intersections with the bike lanes. And I think that you're going to have conflict between vehicles coming out of CVS, vehicles coming out of the dealership. Like I said, 6 curb cuts. You've got the parking, the public parking there. It just seems like there's very little, you have some of the structure installed, but the majority of this street is paint. So I would argue that maybe you should just do paint and not do the structure because the structure is not continuous for the entire block. So I think that creates a false sense of security for the biker. And I also think that it creates confusion to a motorist. It creates some confusion. It creates a lot of confusion for the biker as well, but it definitely creates confusion for the motorist. And I think cars are going to drive over those curbs. And I also think there was somebody else that said this, that there are very few bikers on this block. This block from Tilbury, from the traffic circle at Tilbury to Wisconsin Avenue, I don't know what the speed limit sign is. Maybe it's 25, but the cars only go about 5 or 10 miles an hour. They don't go 25. It's too short of a segment. It's not like it's not like they have a clean run down Cheltenham all the way out. They hit the traffic circle, they slow down. There's a red traffic light at Wisconsin Avenue. There's very, 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 very few bicycles that use this segment. So I think there's a little bit of solving for a problem that doesn't exist yet. You mentioned that part of the rationale for building this section is to gain some connectivity to the other major bikeways, for instance, on Woodmont. But I think in some of these areas in Bethesda where you're doing these small segments, it reminds me a little bit of a neighborhood that gets built and they build a sidewalk, and then at the end of the neighborhood it just stops. It doesn't connect to another sidewalk. It's a sidewalk to nowhere. And this sort of reminds me of the same thing, that I think it's probably better to build out some of the major sections first before you focus on some of the smaller sections that they're not really providing a need. What they're providing is some connectivity. So I don't think it's going to be used very much. Maybe at some point in the future, when the rest of the bikeways are complete, then you start focusing on some of these connectivity areas. That's what I would think. But
I would respectfully disagree with that assessment. As someone that actually has a son, and I just biked down Tilbury this evening and biked down Cheltenham right there to get to this meeting. We do use the road for biking as residents of that neighborhood. I see a lot of bikers come down Tilbury and Cheltenham. I think that I would say 2 things. One is some protection is better than no protection at all for the bikers. And the other thing I would say is sort of planning for the future. I think it's very connected. I mean, this bike lane goes to Woodmont. There's another, I think it's very thoughtful of the county because this bike lane goes to the Woodmont bike lane. which then people take to the Bethesda Capitol Crescent Trail. And I take that route all the time and bike downtown to my job in downtown DC. So I think this is a really good extension of that. And I would just encourage the county to provide bikers as much protection as possible. Um, that's all.
Okay, so thank you both for both your concerns and your responses. So as the gentleman just mentioned, we try to do our best to provide as much protection as possible. And again, just to reiterate, some protection is better than no protection at all. And again, like Miss Rebecca has mentioned, as Matt has mentioned, we have used this method elsewhere in the county, and it has shown to be safe. So we're gonna try to do our best to, tweak our design as we go to try to make it as safe as possible.
Any other questions?
I have questions, Rebecca.
Okay.
Actually, Matt Johnson would like to say something, and then I have a question in the chat, and I have a resident who would like to speak as well. So first, I will unmute Matt Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. And I'll just jump in quickly to say that regarding the point about the fact that this block is not continuously protected with concrete medians and also the risk of collision, we do also put flex posts on top of the median, so they are visible, especially at the leading edge. It is possible for drivers to hit the curb. They also hit the sidewalk. They hit median refuges. I've seen drivers hit a lot of things that are perfectly obvious. But the protection is there for the safety of the bicyclists, and people will get used to them. But they're not just little concrete bumps. They are 6 inches high. They'll have a flex post that's 2.5 or 3 feet high on top of it. And as was mentioned, some protection is better than 100% protection. It's not better than 100% protection, but it's better than 0% protection. And it's also possible that as this block redevelops in the future, that these driveway aprons may go away, in which case the protection can be extended. But I think a similar argument can be made. Wherever you see this green paint, there's no curb against the sidewalk either, right? There's a driveway apron, so people can drive across the sidewalk in those locations. Would it be better if there was no sidewalk on this block? I think we would argue like it's better to have a sidewalk that has driveway aprons than to have nothing. So I think that's a consideration to think about. Um, but yes, all things considered, fewer driveway aprons are better, but these exist. In terms of the network, I don't agree that this is a connection to nowhere, like a sidewalk to nowhere, because bicyclists can and do already bike on the streets in this neighborhood. The county did a countywide level of traffic stress analysis on every single road segment in the county a few years ago. Bicyclists can feel perfectly comfortable, even a child can feel perfectly comfortable biking on a calm residential street. We don't have to have a bike lane everywhere for it to be a low stress piece of the network. So this connects to low stress streets, and these streets connect to the Capitol Crescent Trail that was mentioned. There will be a trail connection at Kentbury to the future Capitol Crescent Trail going to Silver Spring. So someone who lives in East Bethesda who wants to get to downtown Bethesda or who wants to go to Georgetown on the Capitol Crescent Trail, this is a way that they can connect to that network. But also someone who lives in Woodmont Triangle who wants to go towards Silver Spring can use this connection to get across. So this is about building the network. In terms of the prioritization, the council specified which projects were funded here. And we have already built some of the key connections, including Woodmont Avenue Phase 1. Woodmont Avenue Phase 2 will be constructed before this. And Montgomery Lane, Montgomery Avenue Cycle has also partially been built, still under construction. And Bethesda Avenue has been built. So there are different pieces that are happening, and they are happening before this, but we have to have this meeting at an earlier stage. So I appreciate the feedback, and I hope that this provides some additional context beyond the limits of this project.
Thank you, Matt.
That. Let's see. The question in the chat was from Beth Forbes, and she wants to know, what permits do you think will be required for this project?
So as with all projects within the county, we go through several permitting process. If we meet state roads, then we have to have, access permit to work on any of state's property. We also go through stormwater permits. We go through what is called NRIFSD. It's basically a forest control, forestation and trees protection type of permits. Uh, and if there are others, I will get back with you. I just don't remember off the top of my head. My apologies.
No, I think you covered it all. I mean, we also need to get approval of, well, we will have to go through the mandatory referral, planning board hearing through park and planning. That's our next step. But from the permitting perspective, there were 3 types of permits. We will need to acquire access permit, DPS, erosion and sediment control permit, and the NRFSD
Right.
approval. Yeah, which we already have that,
Right.
but the forest conservation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I hope that answered your question.
Okay, great. And then lastly, we have a question from Peter Kozugov.
Go ahead, Peter.
Peter, you're unmuted. Okay, we can circle back to Peter. Okay, and then I do have one more question in the chat, but if you want, we can take some from the room. If there's anyone in the room that would like to speak.
No, there are no more questions in the room.
Okay, great. Nancy Sack says, I'm all in favor of protecting bikers and saving energy. However, when this is completed, will there be studies done to see if the bike lanes are used enough to justify creating more traffic congestion on the street?
So as far as traffic congestion goes, as I stated before, there was a traffic analysis done for this project. I don't remember. I just don't remember off the top of my head. I read through it, and I can go through it more thoroughly with you if you can leave your email address, and we can talk about the traffic impact as far as the resulting use of the bike lane once it's constructed. I mean, we have bikers here in the room that are certainly, uh, how do I say this? We have bikers in the room that agrees that there are plenty of use for these bike lanes as of this moment. And once this is constructed, I can only foresee it inviting more use because how safe how much safer it is than the current conditions that are right now.
I can't speak for all of the bikers, but I'd say this one is very enthusiastic about this project. I would ask the question, you're not removing any lanes, correct? So, I mean, there isn't I'm not a traffic expert, but I would think if you're not removing any lanes and all the car lanes are remaining the same, then I don't think that would be cause for increased traffic. If anything, if the number of lanes stays the same, then it just means that it's getting to be safer, I would think.
Right,
You
and-
answered that. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
You're correct. We are not changing the number of lanes and traffic configurations. We are reducing the lane width, so that will slow down the traffic.
Right, and that's a perfectly valid. Yes, sir.
Nor if you go to the slide with Norfolk. So currently right now, the eastbound lane on Norfolk, I don't believe that it's striped for 2 lanes. However, from a practical standpoint, the cars queue up. Either they're going straight and turning left, or they cut over to the curb and form a right turn turn lane. So I'm not sure that I can't remember whether it's striped that way. I don't think it's striped that way, but now that will go away. And the way it's working right now with a wider lane that then breaks into a left turn lane and a right turn lane, even though it's not striped, but there's enough room that creates that. Even with that current condition, this block gets, like the gentleman said before, this block gets backed up multiple times of the day. So now you're going to eliminate that because you're going to squeeze the lane and tighten it up, and now there won't be, you're going to have one lane, and each individual car will be able to turn left, go straight, or turn right, and that is going to back traffic out across through the intersection. And then another point, as far as the traffic study is concerned, don't the traffic studies, they don't just count cars, don't they also count bicycles?
Right.
Is that information
Yes.
available?
I
Or
don't
do
know
you
why my
have it
thing's
off
not
the
working.
top of your head?
I mean the counts are very thorough and it's very detailed. So to memorize all of it off the top of your head is quite difficult.
Probably not the number of bicycles on the road. Probably not that
Well,
big of a number.
Okay, so I mean, as far as the number of bicycles on the road, there counts at various locations. So to memorize, again, like I said, to memorize all of these data off the top of your head is very difficult. But I'm happy to go over it with whoever that needs to know. As far as your concerns regarding
And also one more thing, that traffic study was done what year?
2022, if I remember right, yes.
Okay. So just after COVID, I guess. Okay. And I know the focus is the task that the goal that you're trying to achieve is create greater safety for bicycles. I get that. Who outside of your department is looking at the larger impact where they're weighing the safety of the bicycles versus the unintended consequences that will occur to the businesses, the merchants, the neighborhood, the parking on the street, the pedestrian safety? What about all these other impacts that will take place when this gets constructed? Who beyond you guys is it, and maybe beyond Matt, is it Conklin at DOT? Is it the county council? Is it the county executive? Who is looking and making that judgment that for $2.2 million, perhaps more, we're going to create these bike lanes. We're going to have some bike use, maybe even more bike use in the future because you build the lanes than what we do currently right now. But who is weighing those impacts, the benefit of the bicycle safety versus what I would argue are a lot of negative impacts that are going to be created by this bike lane?
So that's a question, that's much higher level than me. I don't have the answer for you at the moment, but I will try to get it and get back with you.
So, hello, my name is Dan Sheridan. I'm in the same division as Rebecca and Wong. I'm the planning and design section chief. So you touched on that, correct? So it comes from a master plan that's done by Maryland National Park and Planning Commission. They produce master plans. They have a bike master plan. They have a Bethesda master plan. We at DOT are the implementers of master plans. So projects are determined, to go forward with design and construction. And the ultimate, approvers of that are, Chris Conklin is our chief in the Department of Transportation. And we present our proposed budgets to the county executive. He presents that to the county council, and they approve, each of our projects that we go forward with. So you touched on the entire process. And, the goal of this particular project is a connected network of bike and pedestrian safety and a safer road network. And the goal is to, there may be some impacts to the vehicle network, but the goal is to, keep businesses thriving by having multiple modes of connectivity to businesses and other modes of transportation. So it's a Department of Transportation implements the master plan produced by Maryland National Park and Planning, and those budgets are approved by, or presented by the county executive and approved by the county council.
Thank you, Dan.
And they have they have a wide variety of transportation projects. Somebody mentioned earlier about bike lanes of Maryland 355. Again, the staff mentioned that's a state road, but it's also a bus rapid transit corridor in the future. So it's, space is very limited, and that's another possibility for, transportation options in this area.
Also, Dan, while you're there, there's a lot of discussion within East Bethesda, and specifically the HOA. There's a lot of concern from EBCA about this particular block, and then you've also got businesses on the block. You've got a new building that's being developed right now. They just broke ground a couple weeks ago. And I'm just wondering, beyond the impacts that I talked about, if you have most or all of the businesses in this area that are not in favor of at least bike lanes on both sides and losing the parking and perhaps creating some vehicular congestion. And you also have the neighboring Citizens Association that has also written letters in opposition to this plan as it exists now. It may change in the future. It would seem to me that it would be hard for DOT and for the county executive and perhaps the county council to still install this, even though the majority of the people that surround this particular project either don't want it at all, or don't want it in its current form, or think that there might be some benefit to it, but let's prioritize other things first before you do this piece. So that goes back to, who outside of this room is going to make those decisions and look at the constituent opposition to it. And I get that there's constituent favorability towards it as well, but I think the opposition is quite large.
So your point is well taken, and that is one of the main reasons we're having this meeting tonight. We are seeking input, right? Nothing we do goes without a public process. Rebecca mentioned earlier, the next step would be a mandatory referral, which is a presentation by the planning board of this project. The planning board weighs in on the merits of it. They ask for changes, whether they approve of it or not. And then we have other public meetings further along in the process. So, we are seeking input, both positive and negative. And, the goal would be to get the most efficient project installed. So we appreciate your comments.
And I also like to say we haven't received any comments opposing this project. It was in generally favored by a majority of the community surrounding it. So
I would say as yeah, and
I feel like I have to respond to your comment because this is recorded and it's on the record. There's a great deal of opposition. The East Bethesda Citizens Association has written letters in opposition to this. Okay. I personally have written letters in opposition to this, looking for changes since 2016 when the bike lane master plan was in its infancy, just being, you know, it wasn't even it was a gleam in someone's eye, you know, to build out this bikeway in network in Montgomery County, let's say. So there's a great deal of opposition. You received a letter this morning in opposition to it, which is basically a repeat from some other letters in opposition. But the Citizens Association, I'm sure there are a handful of people that live in East Bethesda that think it's great, but there's the Citizens Association in East Bethesda wrote letters in opposition to this.
we're talking about the East Bethesda Citizens Association. I can't say that I'm technically a member. I may not have paid my dues this year, but I do follow them closely. And I don't remember seeing any letter from that organization opposing this project. I can say that I know many people in my community in East Bethesda, many of my fellow neighbors and residents that are 110% supportive of this project. And I'd say, you know, for the bikers, we hope that it goes forward. And I would hope that if there are businesses that operate in this area, that perhaps having bike lanes will bring new customers to those businesses and help people get to those businesses so that it helps everyone. You know, I think it's a great thing. And I think there's a lot of people in our community, I know there are, that appreciate and support this project. And I'd like that on the record.
Thank you both. As far as your concerns, I did receive a letter this morning in opposition, but that is the only one I've received so far. Though with that email, there were two, you know, correspondence attached to it. No, in total, it has been the only email I've received in opposition of the project. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
I just want to make an observation on the traffic study. 2022, I don't think Marriott was complete yet. People were still remote working. Businesses are calling their employees back. The government's calling their employees back. Traffic's going to be different now than it was in 2022.
Okay. As far as traffic goes, sir, from my experience, traffic studies are when they're done, they take into various condition. They take various criteria into consideration, and the business growth and the changing of like, for a lack of a better term, changing of the traffic climate are also taken into consideration in these traffic analysis. So it's very possible that then, you know, there's going to be an increase in traffic, but is it going to be severe, you know, following the project? That's hard to say, and it's harder to say how much impact the project will have, because sometimes, you know, regardless if the project is built or not, like you said, people returning to their office, the traffic is going to be bad anyway. So I don't think that the project itself will be the main factor.
But I think it's going to make Norfolk Avenue a mess, and it's going to block traffic on Woodmont. And when it comes to traffic studies, it's like home appraisals. You always get the result you want.
I just want to dive into a little bit more of the details. Can we go to the Cheltenham side? Yeah, where's the bike lane on the park side of Cheltenham Drive?
Say that again, man.
On the park, on Cheltenham Drive Park, is there a bike lane there? That park, yes.
As you can see, there is not a bike lane right there right now. We are looking to connect to the south side. But again, as Matt mentions before, there where there are residential roads that people can ride their bikes safely on. If the bikeway network connects to those residential roadway where it's relatively comfortable for riders to ride, we won't build bike lanes in those sections. No, I'm not.
So what makes that half block safer than the rest of the block? For the need for the additional bike lanes, if you said that portion is safe?
I don't have an answer to your question. I'm sorry.
We are here to receive the feedback, and I just understand that this is only conceptual design stages. So we'll look into this.
My question. But to add to that, I wanted to understand the north side. What is that connecting to? Since it dies right there at the park. So just to understand your connectivity, to see if you're thinking outside of these two blocks. So you're supposed to bike on the street and then go on the pedestrian path across to go on to Tilbury or then down to Cheltenham. Is that the plan? On the road?
I mean,
Okay, so there is a shared option also.
right. So our project is going to end right there at the roundabout, but there has been feasibility studies done that are potentially going to expand this even further to connect that road to the north of that roundabout there, and a couple more streets around that area. I mean, as far as when the design's gonna kick off and construction and whatnot, I don't have the time frame right now. All I can tell you is I've read the study on and those roads are part of that network.
I see Matt has a raised hand. I'm sure he has some insight.
Matt, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I think you might. I apologize if I'm misunderstanding, but I think you're misunderstanding the question. I believe the questioner is asking about the shared lane marking for the westbound movement along Cheltenham Drive between the roundabout and the Midas location, not Tilbury Street, north of the roundabout, but Cheltenham west of the roundabout. Why is the bike lane not in front of the park? What makes that half block different from the rest of the project? The answer here, we did change project managers. There was a different project manager who worked on this earlier on. I was not directly involved in this, but I believe the initial concept was to actually widen the sidewalk in front of the park and have kind of a wider sidewalk, and the bikes are on the sidewalk, shared with the pedestrians, and then it splits into the bike lane once you get past the park. And correct me if I'm wrong, Juan, but I believe what we're trying to do here is protect the trees in front of the park. This has lower volume because a lot of the traffic on Cheltenham here is coming out of the parking garage. And so that segment east of the parking garage, between the roundabout and the parking garage, has a little bit less traffic. So it's a very short segment. It probably would still be better from a stress perspective for cyclists to have a bike lane on that block, and that may end up being what happens as part of this conversation. But the result there is going to be the loss of some street trees.
Any more questions?
Thank you, Matt.
So if you're on the north side, north bike lane, and you want to take a left onto Woodmont, how would a bike do that?
Matt, can you take this one?
Sure, thanks. I had to wait to get unmuted there. So if you're biking westbound on Norfolk in the bike lane and you want to make a left onto Woodmont, the initial concept is that you will do what's called a two-stage left turn. There's a little box. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a little box in the upper left corner of the intersection there. That's a queue box, a QUEUE, a queue box, which is a place for you to wait. And basically, what it is for bicyclists to make left turns, similar to how pedestrians make a left turn. If you're a pedestrian walking on that north sidewalk and you want to go south on the west sidewalk on Woodmont, you have to first cross Woodmont and then cross Norfolk. So it takes two stages. Um, and that's considered a way to deal with bicyclist left turns in a lower stress manner so that bicyclists who may not feel confident merging into traffic and making a left turn with cars behind them or trying to go around them, you can wait out of the line of traffic. Now, eventually, what we would like to have happen here as part of Woodmont Phase 3 is to build a protected intersection here, which would basically provide some concrete corner islands to protect cyclists from traffic and provide a little bit more of a comfortable place to wait. That would happen as part of Woodmont Phase 3, and that's currently not funded for design or construction.
Thank you. And then last question on the south side of Norfolk, when at the corner of Marriott and the Tasty Diner and Woodmont, there's no sidewalk there, and there's a big light post. There's not even pedestrian space, barely. So is the sidewalk being considered to be expanded in that corner as part of this project?
So as far as this project's concerned, we are only we're only making changes within the from the edge of pavement to the edge of pavement. We're not doing anything outside of that limit. The sidewalks will remain the way they are.
No, we are like, all the work is done from existing curves, nothing beyond that. Any other questions? Thank you. All right. So if there are no more questions, we can adjourn the meeting. We'll be here. We'll stick around to answer questions from the folks that joined in person. Thank you.
Thank you all again. I'll be around. We'll talk one-on-one, and please provide me with your information or write to me after the meeting, and I'll do my best to address your concerns. Thank you all. Thank you for coming. Thank you.